All right, guys, welcome to Module 4. This is just going to be my short lecture on knowledge creation in organizations, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the unlearning process, which I think you'll find interesting. I think it's overall a very interesting concept. So let's move on to the introduction. Knowledge creation is an essential ingredient for an organization's development, and organizations need to facilitate knowledge creation. So this whole chapter is about how does an organization create knowledge? And it's clear that knowledge is essential for any organization to further develop, become more efficient, become more effective. And the same applies to a law enforcement agency, for example. If you're going to continue to be an efficient, effective organization, you need to be able to tie in the concepts of knowledge management and enhance your ability as an organization to be much more effective and efficient. And so this whole idea of knowledge creation is one that promotes the ability of an organization to not only create knowledge, but in fact to capture and use that knowledge to its benefit. Now, further in the text for this chapter, which is chapter 7, the authors talk about the idea of knowledge creation and how knowledge is created within an organization and then how it's converted within the organization. So, Nonaka talks about SECI, which is basically socialization, socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization. So these are the different ways in which knowledge is created or converted within an organization. So first he talks about socialization, which is really tacit to tacit knowledge. All right, and so you could look at this, for example, in terms of a training officer teaching a new officer the ropes, so to speak. Right? That's tacit to tacit. In other words, it's individualized. It's people and people being able to share and convert knowledge from one person to the other. So again, you could use it as an example in terms of a training officer training a new employee. The second one is the externalization, where you go from tacit to explicit. And this is where an individual is able to share or make their tacit knowledge more explicit. So you're taking your tacit knowledge and you're sharing it with others and making it more explicit. It could be through a process of communication and dialogue with others. So one of the examples I think I've given previously is where, let's say, for example, a colleague is looking for a wanted person. And you say, hey, I know where this guy's girlfriend lives. And this is where she lives. And I, in the past, known him to hang out there quite frequently. So the employee who's looking for this wanted person then may make a wanted flyer with this amended information on it. So he's taken this tacit knowledge of this officer who says, hey, I know where this guy's girlfriend is. And the other officer who's looking for this wanted person then offers that information in the form of a flyer or some sort of be on the lookout or some sort of briefing item or log item, and makes that knowledge explicit, so it's shared with other people. Then there's a combination of explicit to explicit, and that's linking together discrete bodies of knowledge to create a more complex body of knowledge. And I will go give the example, to me, explicit to explicit, and I don't know if I've mentioned this particular example before, but to me, you could talk about the evolution of the cell phone, all right, and how over time the cell phone has evolved to what it is today. It used to be a very large handheld device. Then, for those of you who recall, we've gone to the flip phones, and then to the Blackberries and the iPhones. And each time the phone has gotten better, we've taken explicit knowledge in terms of how cell phones operate, their basic function and operations, and continue to share that knowledge and make it even more explicit. In other words, we're beginning to take the explicit knowledge necessary to understand the whole idea of a cellular phone to what we have today. So it's basically going from explicit to explicit. Finally, he talks about internalization, where you're taking explicit knowledge and you're making it tacit. So this is where an individual converts explicit knowledge into tacit knowledge through applying it to their work tasks. So your ability to take something, read about it, and then apply it to your real life, for example, is taking something from explicit knowledge to tacit knowledge. And so these are the ways that an organization creates knowledge and uses knowledge to its benefit to enhance the overall operation of the organization in terms of its function and its operations, its efficiency, and its effectiveness. Then the author also talks about BA. BA means shared space or context. It can be either virtual or physical. And how an organization can take this BA or space and apply it to each of these different types of socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization. So we're enabling conditions. In other words, the organization is creating an environment in which this type of knowledge is shared amongst members of the organization. So in terms of socialization, we're talking about creating a shared space where people can work or develop and share ideas, knowledges, practices, communication, that sort of stuff. So again, you could look at the layout of a briefing room in law enforcement. It's designed to share information. You could look at the layout for a detective bureau. In some organizations, maybe each guy has his own cubicle. In other words, it might be more of a bullpen where it's open. The idea being hopefully to share information amongst the employees for the betterment of the organization. Share your ideas, expand the knowledge of everybody. When you're looking at externalization, it's shared space, not necessarily physical, where groups of people can articulate experiences to each other via metaphors, concepts, etc. So maybe the whole idea of creating some type of web-based area where employees can share ideas and learn from other employees in terms of different aspects. It could be learning some aspect of a new computer system or something along those lines. But externalization, taking something tacit and making it more explicit so employees can enter information and others can read it and capture and learn about it. So that type of idea. So creating those type of physical or a virtual type of environment. Combination, again, it's using CyberBA, a virtual space within which explicit knowledge can be combined, such as within IT systems or documents. So a centralized location system where you can access information that others have already done. So basically, again, you're taking the idea of explicit knowledge and making it even more explicit. So you're reading about what somebody's done and you're adding to that. Sometimes that's common in some of our classes where you might use wikis, for example, where each student is building upon a paper, for example. So you're using this combination of tacit to tacit type knowledge. And finally, it's the idea of internalization, where you connect or a context which allows people to develop, refine, and familiarize themselves and utilize explicit knowledge, which includes training opportunities and the ability to repeatedly apply and utilize explicit knowledge. So you're taking that explicit knowledge and you're converting it into tacit knowledge. And so it's important for organizations, if you're going to be involved in the idea of knowledge creation and expanding the knowledge of the organization, to make sure that you provide a means, either some space, either virtual or physical, where employees can expand and share their ideas about the knowledge and move the organization forward. All right, so these are the whole idea of the knowledge creation theory, but you can read about it. And then I also have a short video for you this week that I think will help facilitate this discussion even further, give you a good idea as to how it can be applied, and in addition, discuss these types of BOBs that the authors talk about. Okay. Now I just want to jump to the unlearning knowledge. This is an interesting chapter because the whole idea of unlearning something seems counterintuitive, but in fact, in order for an organization to move forward, employees need to unlearn certain things so that they can learn new knowledge and move forward. Now, there's some issues associated with this idea of unlearning, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, what is unlearning? And unlearning is a conscious and deliberate process of reflecting upon and being prepared to give up existing knowledge and values and or practices. Okay, let me correct the spelling on that while I've got you here. There we go, practices. So you have to give up existing knowledge in order to learn some new type of knowledge that is being implemented within the organization. In other words, give up the old way of doing stuff. So what's this all about? It's about the ability to unlearn and give up existing knowledge. It's key to change and allows organizations to be adaptable. For example, the implementation of a new record system. And I emphasize with it, no, because anytime you go about wanting to make any significant changes within an organization, and especially a law enforcement organization, you're going to end up getting some resistance because, let's be honest, cops don't like change, and neither do some other employees. So the fact that we're going to implement this new records management system is going to get, the initial thought is, no, what's wrong with the old one? I feel happy with the old one. Or the traditional idea of, we've always done it this way, all right? We've always done it this way and it works. Why are we changing? And so sometimes as an organization, you need to develop a process by which you're going to hopefully facilitate and encourage your employees to want to get involved in some of this change that's going to be taking place. And typically, in the long run, change will be better for the organization because, as we've learned, the organization needs to create new knowledge. And technology often is that tool that we use to create this type of knowledge. The book talks about modes of forgetting, all right? And I'm going to stop here real quick so we can come back to this because I'm going to run out of time in this presentation. But when we come back, I'm going to talk about modes of forgetting, and then we'll quickly wrap up this particular section. All right, so hang on, and I will be right back. Thanks.